The war has been going on for almost a year now. According to various estimates, about 200,000 people have already died, but it still doesn't seem to be over yet. Let's take a look at the situation on the front line at the moment and talk about which side is in a better position to make a new breakthrough. This is Conflict Report. I live in Kiev and tell you about the war through the eyes of an eyewitness. So, over the past few days, Russian troops have managed to capture the village of Krasnohora, north of Bakhmut. In recent weeks, the village was attacked from three sides and the situation was turning critical for Ukraine. Eventually, we heard a statement from the leadership of the Ukrainian armed forces about the withdrawal of units from Krasnohora. Having gained local success in this region, Russian troops developing an offensive on Zarezhnyansk and Paraskoviyivka. So far, the Ukrainian defense has managed to stop the enemy on the Bakhmut-Slavyansk highway. The road no longer plays any logistical role, but it's a situational front line. The enemy's main objective there is to push the Ukrainian armed forces out of Paraskoviyivka. The Russian enemy's assault action in the direction of Rozdolivka and Vesele failed. Here the enemy continues to try advance toward the city of Siversk in order to surround it. Problems for Ukraine may arise here because of the Siversky Donets River, which flows to the north. If the city is surrounded on three sides, Ukraine will have to deliver ammunition and reinforcement to the city via pontoon crossings, which will be vulnerable to Russian bombardment. Fierce fighting continues in the eastern part of Bakhmut. The situation here reminds of scenes from 1993 movie Stalingrad. Russia is constantly gathering new reserves here and immediately sending them to attack. However, almost all attacks here in recent days have been repelled. Avdiivka section. The enemy is storming the western outskirts of Novobakhmutivka. Large forces are concentrating on the assault of Krasnohorivka. The 110th Separate Mechanized Brigade is holding the defense here, and the situation is extremely difficult for the Ukrainian military, as the enemy has found a gap in the defense and is regularly supplying it with manpower. The Russian army has taken several positions south of Pervomaiske. It launched a massive assault on the village of Nevelske. The situation near the village threatens to become a new breakthrough. The situation near Avdiivka may become similar to the one in Bakhmut. If the enemy managed to occupy the road to the turnoff to the ceramic plant, Avdiivka may also be semi-sieged. In recent days, the enemy has launched a massive assault on the center and south of Mar'inka. Ukrainian artillery is trying to close the frontline breakthroughs in this area. So far, it has succeeded. During the artillery shelling, the attacking Russian troops often retreat, leaving the wounded on the battlefield. Zaporizhia section. Russia is trying to make control over the road to Mariupol, south of Orikhiv. Svatova section. The enemy launches destruction attacks on Khrenekivka. From Polshanka, Chervonopopivka and Kremina, the enemy is conducting offensive actions aimed to push Ukrainian forces from the left bank of Zherebets River. If we assess the situation in the front in general, the last few days have been extremely difficult for the Ukrainian defense forces. The defenders are trying to hold back the enemy along the entire front line, but due to their numerical superiority in manpower and artillery shells, the Russian army is making progress in each of their directions. Of course, this is not the speed of advance that Russia's military leadership has hoped for, having thrown so much equipment and manpower into the battle. Bakhmut still has a margin of safety, despite the painful flank breakthroughs that have been taking place over the past few months. However, the Ukrainian leadership is concerned about the number of Russian units in the area of Kremina. Although the situation is not critical for the Ukrainian military, the number of Russian troops in the area indicates a possible escalation and much more intense fighting. If we talk not about tactical changes but about global problems of either army, lack of ammunition comes first. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg has already said that today that armed conflict is actually turning into a logistical race. Considering that Moscow has already launched another offensive and the Ukrainian Armed Forces Command is also preparing for a counterattack, the outcome of the next phase of the war will largely depend on which side of the conflict will be able to rearm its army faster and more effectively. NATO's military-industrial complex can barely keep up with the rapidly dwindling Ukrainian arsenal, while Moscow is forced to turn to its few remaining allies, such as Iran and North Korea, for help. Today, the Ukrainian army is in a much better position than it was last summer, when the Ukrainian armed forces still relied heavily on Soviet-era artillery and weapons systems. Now, with the supply of Western weapons, Ukraine is able to obtain European and US-made ammunition. Since both Ukrainian and Russian forces fire thousands of shells at each other every day, the Pentagon has already announced that it plans to increase artillery shell production sixfold over the next 2 years. However, given the front line stretching almost 1,000 kilometers, even this may not be enough. According to the latest data, in one day Ukraine uses an amount of artillery shells comparable to the annual order of an average European country. And even in spite of these huge numbers, Russia's daily consumption is 4 times that of Ukraine. How long each side will be able to maintain this level of spending, we will know in the future. And I want to remind you that every week on my channel I give away collectible coins from the National Bank of Ukraine. This collection is called Hero Cities and includes the cities that suffered the most from the Russian invasion. These are Kharkiv, Kherson, Mariupol and Bucha. And if you want to get one of these coins, you just need to support this channel through Patreon. The link is in the description below this video, or right here on YouTube by clicking on the join button. Thank you for your support, subscribe to the channel and live in peace.